Hello, all, and welcome back to another episode of Into the Void. I'm Nick, and that's Dan. Hold up, strike that, reverse that. This is Into the Void, and we are going to be delving into the next subject on the list, which is, tell them there, Nick.
Well, today we're going into deep sea exploration, talking about oceans and all that unknown, mysterious stuff that we still don't know about.
It's obviously going to get personal with me. It's probably going to get somewhat psychological and probably just a teaspoon of political, but we'll get there when we get there. So the first thing we're going to go over is creatures involving the deep sea expedition. So what do we got on the list of first deep sea expedition when it comes to what's going on down there? Where all the goodness and the fun lies. We first up on the list, we got a deep sea batfish we got going on here, which probably one of the most adorable things I've ever seen. Probably not that thing, which is probably the thing you're referring to, but this probably looks closer to somebody's dog of how adorable it is. But what are we looking at right now?
Yeah, I'm not even sure. So obviously, they live at the very bottom, it seems,
Mm.
and it's so interesting how they have no skeletal structure. I feel like all these creatures down there are they're like jelly because the pressure would just crush their bones. Um, yeah, look at those guys. I'm not sure if those are babies or that's just how they are and they just hang out on the bottom and scoop up what remains they find.
These are like some bottom feeders or something.
Yeah, it almost looks like it's a flounder looking guy, but then you got that right one. Looks like a fanged vampire over there.
This thing's going so this guy just looks like he's just stumbled away from home a little bit, and he would like float on up to you, and it's like, hey, can you help me find my parents or something like that.
Looks like a Finding Nemo character, like a stingray, but it looks like he has a mouth. He's adorable.
Looks like he's got like a genuine personality. Like he looks like a fun little guy, a little shy, but he looks like a fun time. Moving on to the next one, which you're the one with the bachelor's degree.
Siphonophores.
Oh boy, you said it. Can you explain what we're looking at now?
This looks like just a giant deep sea worm. I'm not sure if it's bioluminescent, I believe the word is.
Oh, okay.
Which I feel like most of the stuff is down there. Look at that. That's
okay. That's these things sometimes like you just look at like this stuff right here. Sometimes you just look at these things and it's just you're at a loss for words because you're just looking at something that is just like so alien and so beyond our world that it's just like you can't even explain what you're looking at. It's even if we could go down there, like if you saw this, you would be just such at a loss for words.
Yeah, I would kind of poop instantly. Look, it has tentacles like jellyfish, but it looks like it's like a worm or an eel.
Feel free to work alongside with us here, but
Stephanie Wagner. So, yo, imagine if you could go in a submarine with these walls in the submarine probably have to be thick, just so you don't get crushed.
How are we even getting these photos though? It's like okay, moving on to the next creature here. We got a deep sea shark, a frilled shark. We got going on here. This is just freaking wild.
So I'm pretty sure that first one is fake. I think that's like a prehistoric dinosaur that doesn't exist anymore. But the other ones are actually real. You could see it has freaking four rows of super tiny razor teeth.
that look like they curve inwards.
Yeah.
Like it looks like it's like one of those things that like latch on and it's just like a reverse grip. And it's like, well, I guess he's a part of me now.
Yo, that bottom left picture, they like smile, and that makes it creepier.
Ugh. Yeah.
That's something I'm terrified. Like,
This looks like one of those like mythological creatures, like one of those.
yeah.
You ever heard of that? SCPs. So it's like SCP like 731, and
Oh
it's
yeah.
a creature that is like that has the ability to just end the world whenever the hell it wants. But
Yes.
there's like a secret underground facility controlled by the Illuminati or something that's like housing these creatures, and their entire full time job is just making sure they don't get out and we just don't all die. This looks like one of those.
Yeah.
Look at
That
this.
would be. Would I be terrified if you're like night swimming and you open your eyes underwater or something?
You could have that. Yeah, I think everyone like this first picture. That's I've seen that picture before, and
Yeah.
it's like so universal when it comes up to like deep sea creatures. But I think this is like one of those sharks that's just like in a weird like it's like going through like a divorce or something. But it's it's like a normal shark that's like in between like some kind of phases or something, and it's just a normal shark. But this stuff yeah, he don't look too cuddly. This one.
So I think what happened before we move to the next one is they found one of these like toward the surface of the water, maybe in, I don't know, Japan or something. And that's, I think, the first sighting of this thing. And unfortunately it died soon after because its body's just so used to the depths once it got to the top, possibly in search for food or something. But then it just couldn't handle it, so then it just died.
Wow. Yeah, of course. This is this has got Japanese written all over it. I could see that popping up over there, but like on the shores of like New York or something. Nah, you would have to move. You would have to move countries after this. Moving on to the next, we got another bachelor's degree term. Take it over.
These are pyrosomes, and I remember seeing this photo. So let's look at like the third or fourth one. So it's like a giant tube. I'm like, yo, what? But it turns out it's not a giant animal. It's a bunch of tiny animals grouping together to make it seem like a large animal.
Oh,
So it's trying to use like that type of size for itself. I'm not sure if it's super deep sea because you can see there's a scuba diver right there. But it's just one of those creatures in the ocean that are like, what?
so it's like a collage of I don't want to say plankton, but like what kind of creatures though?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's like a plankton or some type of bacteria.
Like
I'm not furry bodies under the. Yeah, I wonder if the second row, the one to the right, I wonder if that's like one of them. What is that guy on the last row, the third picture? He's like writing it.
this thing as soon as you told me to look this up, I saw this thing and immediately I thought of Finding Nemo when they're in the EAC, dude,
Yeah.
a tunnel, and all of a sudden there's just a wicked strong current just flowing, and turtles, just deep sea, I don't know, deep sea turtles, just traveling amongst this tunnel or something. But apparently that was not right in the slightest. So
Yeah, those are wild. I remember seeing that before, and it took me a while because I didn't know the name of it, and I'm like, giant water tube creature, and I eventually found it.
it's just that's great. Like so it's just so it's basically just like another in another format, I guess, like a school of fish almost.
Yeah, in a way, but it's so interesting how they seem somewhat intelligent. Like it's just not a mass of them. They're like elongated.
That always fascinated me. If you see like a flock, whatever term you want to call it, of like a flock of birds that are just in the sky, and there's like 100 or like 200 of them, and they all just fly in unison, or like a school of fish. They just all seem to be on the same frequency, and they just like, who's the leader here? Just making these calls, because if they were all just like on the same different mindsets, they would be flying all over the place, and you would see nothing like this. But even amongst, like, say, a school of fish of like 100 fish, you're telling me all of them are on the same page? You know what I mean? Like, they're all sticking together. That's some coordinating stuff right there. That's impressive that they're able to do that.
That is pretty wild. And the size those things get, if you could look it up real quick. But I feel like a school of, I don't know, tuna could be like, I don't know if a mile long is possible,
It's crazy.
but it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it looks like they could get from like a few inches to like honestly a few feet or yards. That's crazy.
But I do think we put ourselves on like a pedestal,
Hmm.
like humans, and we just think all other animals are below us. And I think they're actually much smarter than we think.
Yeah, we're probably on the lower set spectrum of the intelligence of intelligence pyramid scheme there. Are we ready to move on to the next here? Because as soon as we do, I'm going into a biased rant of this new creature here. If y'all ever heard about my man Cthulhu here, um, it's kind of a big deal in my world. And what I personally believe, I don't believe gods or demons or anything, but I do believe that this is at the bottom of the ocean right now, and he's just in an eternal slumber. And all we got to do is wake him up, and he'll just get to work and just solve all the problems, and salvation will finally be achieved. So where do you fall amongst the Cthulhu mythos there, Nick? What's your There's degree?
I mean, I think it's super interesting with Lovecraft characters. I mean, I don't know if I fall in the camp of like he's there. However, you can't not prove that either. But could you imagine? There's just a dude. How tall is this guy? Freaking 30 stories.
In the story, I think Lovecraft illustrated it as he's like a few stories high, and he was able to like cup, I think, like 8 men, like 8 full grown ass men in his hand, like no problem or something. I haven't
Wow.
read it in a long ass time, but it's been a hot minute. But he's not like gargantuan.
Hmm.
But like with different stories, his size obviously changes, and it's like different every single time. But yeah, he's not small by any means. Like he's an ancient god, so I mean, it's not like it's going to be like, oh, that's it. Because see, like, look, he's standing in the ocean, and it looks like a giant pirate ship. Just looks like you could just pick it up like a toy. It just the care. I love this character because it's so fascinating to me. It's so creative, and it just changes every time. Like there's so many different interpretations of it, and it's just terrifying to me. Like it's one of the most unique creatures I just ever devised and put to paper. It's like the best alien designs is like the xenomorph and the predator. It's just so spot on of just excellent character design. But this thing, it's just next level of just, oh, I know, sober, making this a humanoid figure with an octopus head, bat wings, and it's big enough to stand up in the ocean. And upon looking at it, you'll lose your freaking mind because it's so beyond our comprehension that our minds can't process it. I'm ranting. Take over.
So, quick backstory. This is an H.P. Lovecraft character, if you're not familiar. He was born in, when was he, like the 30s or something?
He was born. This is bad that I'm thinking about this because I dedicated and an entire 2 books to him. But he was born in the, I think, 1936 and died in rather recently. I think he died in like the 60s. I think he was only like 40 something years old.
Yeah. I definitely think he was during the Depression era. So what he did was create like a whole universe of like astronomical celestial beings, and this is his most popular one. And he created so many different characters like within our popular like culture. I'm sure like the game Doom, there's a bunch of creatures there. I think it's similar to Alien, didn't it? Or
Alien,
Alien.
the Xenomorph character was inspired by H.R. Geiger, his work,
Hmm.
and his stuff is incredible. It just the combination of just alien level technology combined with humanoid figures and just collaging, that's a word, just combining all of it around like godly machinery or something like that. It's his work is so interesting, and that's where the xenomorph came from. Where Cthulhu kind of came from was, um, yeah, Lovecraft. He created this design because he was just going for something that was just like just I think he because he used to write about some of the dreams and the nightmares that he had, and he wrote about all different kinds of creatures that he put to paper. One of them being they're called like night gaunts or something like that, and they're just like um, um, devilish leather skinned humanoid bats that just have wings and that just float over just above us at night and snatch us up by our bellies while we're sleeping and the nightmare is just they're carrying you like a hawk carries like a small dog over houses and whatever, and he just had a dream of one of these night gaunts just picking him up and like flying him over town or something like that. And that was an interesting creature design, like one of the very first. And then he has other creatures that's a little getting a little far off from like the subject matter at hand, because you have like Neolethotep and Dagon. Oh, Dagon actually is another one of his designs. It's basically just the god of fish, pretty much. It's just this giant humanoid fish looking thing. And I don't know if this episode is going leaning more towards like mythological or like Cthulhu mythos level stuff, but um, getting into this, I knew I was going to get a little bit lost in it. But yeah, it's all different kinds of stuff, but not too far off. Maybe minus a few scales here and there, but going back to like real life stuff, it's some crazy stuff going on down there.
Yeah.
It's a party down there, you know.
Just all right. If you want to stop screen sharing, take a look at our faces. Hopefully that worked. This is our first time screen sharing. But coming back to, I think the video could go like half and half of real life and I don't know theories, because we only explored what 5% of the oceans. So 95% we're not even, we have no clue. We're trying to go into space, which is very interesting at the same time. But if like you're looking for aliens, you're gonna have a larger probability finding it in the ocean.
I think we all accept that we are just so minute and so small compared to the rest of the universe, even in our own solar system. Like we're not even at galaxy level. We're not at universe level. I'm talking like we can't even get to Mars level. Like we're so such a blip, such a pixel, like a singular pixel in like a movie theater level sized screen. So like venturing out into space, I could see why we would invest money into that, but I think we would have better luck finding things in deep sea expedition. Where do you fall on that?
Yeah, I'm not sure if because I've done a lot of research into like just ocean stuff, space stuff. I mean, I took an oceanography course in college too. But I was looking up. I'm not sure if NASA is actually working underwater just to study how different planets might work. So, for example, if you're aware of um, the moon of Jupiter, well, they have multiple moons. One of them is Europa,
That's right.
and I'm pretty sure like the crust is frozen. However, within the crust, there's an actual ocean. There's liquid water, and how that happens is because if you're familiar with our ocean and our moon, we have tides. But with Jupiter, the strength of Jupiter is much more stronger. So if you think of how tides work, of as the world rotates, that's how the water is pulled toward the moon. But with Jupiter and Europa, because it's much stronger, there's more friction, so it actually makes the ice liquid within the moon. And that's how it creates the ocean. So I'm like, wait a minute, what? So that's actually possible. Like you don't need actual heat or some, because I think how we deciphered like the beginning of life on Earth was like deep sea vents. And that, I don't know what comes out of it, like carbon and stuff like that. And we thought it was like so hostile down there, but there's still creatures down there. So that's what we think, like that's where it started. So if that's possible, and if there's no like necessarily heat source on Europa, there's like water, maybe there could be some weird creatures there. Like they have their own ocean, similar, to, kind of similar to us. Um, but if NASA is studying stuff like that, then who knows? Other planets or moons could have life there too.
That's interesting, but I think it's more interesting how NASA is investigating moons and other planets. Like that's great and all, but I think we should focus more on the planet that we're on and the only planet that humans are on. And it's like, oh, I love when NASA, and plus this is like with when David Muir comes on and they go over like 5 seconds of like life changing information when it comes to space expedition, and it's like such a we found a space an area in space where the air is just flexing, and this may have been exactly where both the dimensions collided that created us. Next up, this little girl is housing a lemonade stand, like this thing. But just why we're putting so much time, thought, and especially money and research into planets that we can't even get to. They're looking at a planet that's like, oh guys, we found a planet that's just like Earth, that's better in every way, zero problems that we could see from here. Too bad it's 138 million light years away, and it's like, what kind of magnifying telescope do you got that you can see this thing? I'm not versatile in NASA stuff. I love it, but how they're able to just look outside of our solar system and just deep into the galaxy. It's like, guys, we gotta know about what's going on here. before we could leave here, before we start like looking up into the sky and stuff like that. So like space expedition, we gotta put that amount of effort, that amount of money and research into our oceans. Like there's a lot of physics and a lot of uh, unfortunate hindrances that humans run into when it comes to space expedition, you know, like pressure and stuff, because our stupid idiot human bodies can't handle pressure. Some of us on land and others below the surface. We can't even get to the bottom of a deep end pool without having a headache. But I seeing these creatures at the bottom of the ocean, there's got to be more. Like opinions.
Yeah, I completely agree. I do like NASA, Neil deGrasse Tyson. I love him. But I think there should be kind of, because different problems that we face in space, we end up getting like different tools from. Like for example, like an electric hand drill. I think because we first had like a corded hand drill, and they had to figure out how to do that in space. So they created that, and then now we have that tool on Earth. So there's different varying reasons why, but I like maybe half space, half ocean. I do think we got to look more at the oceans, actually, because I was looking at one hedge fund manager. His name is Ray Dalio, very popular one. But he actually has a not, maybe it's not for profit, I'm not sure, but he funds like deep sea explorations. Like he has a submarine and he has like his team go down and explore the ocean. And I think that's very interesting. I never really heard of anyone like doing massive research. Obviously, they're scientists, but like into oceans. Like who knows? The cure for cancer could be at the bottom of the ocean, and we wouldn't really know. We might even have it. That's another story. But, um, but yeah, I think there's just what we could even learn from even like evolution.
Why is it that it feels like when it comes to space expedition that NASA backs that up? Like NASA's all about it. Like they have access to billions and billions of dollars when it comes to space expedition, this, that, and the other thing. But when it comes to deep sea expedition, it just sounds like some guy that just happened to obtain a submarine and it's like crowd funded, that he does this like as a hobby, and he's trying to like publicize like his findings. Like why does it feel like it's such a low budget person that always handles deep sea stuff, and NASA with their billions of dollars is looking at a big pile of nothingness with dead stars that are so far beyond our reach. We're seeing we're seeing glimmers of stars. Man, that star has been a dead sun for more than Earth's been Earth. You know what I mean? Like deep sea, it just feels like we need more crowdfunding. Like we need like we need like patrons or something. I don't know. Like
There's just a guy. He has a GoFundMe page trying to build a submarine and find some stuff out here. But I mean, I'm sure there's some, but I feel like it's very lowly funded, and I don't know, especially if we're so interested in how like life started and how it like evolved. I'm pretty sure like one of the top theories is it started at the bottom of the ocean.
oh yeah. Like you ever hear of marine snow?
Maybe.
Marine snow, this stuff is basically what the the creatures on the bottom of the ocean feed upon, because there's no life, there's no nothing. It's just pure abyss down there. And basically marine snow is just particles and just bacteria that breaks off from corals and dead things and living things that just float down to the bottom of the ocean. So they have just food supply coming from probably what they're seeing is just nothingness, and that's what they feed upon because there's nothing else down there. So that's you'll just see like floating particles, which is just like pulverized corals and dead things, like just things like kind of like fading away in the ocean, and it just floats down, and it eventually gets to one of those adorable batfish things, and that's its food source.
That's right. I remember that. So there's a term that when I was looking up like deep sea stuff, because it's fascinating, and I think deep sea ocean is so similar to space because they're both mysterious and we know nothing about it. But one term that I found out is called deep sea giganticism. So if you think about it, stuff down there, not that we visit it often, but there's a lot of big stuff down there. Like there's some giant shark. I forgot the name of it, but there's like giant squid, giant octopuses, and a bunch of other things. So there are reasons why there's some giant stuff like Cthulhu down there. So a couple factors is colder temperature, so obviously the sun can't reach down there. Food scarcity, which I feel like would be the opposite. Like I feel like smaller animals would be down there. However, there are less predators. So if you're not going to be eaten when you're 2 years old, you have time to grow. So that kind of makes sense. And they also mentioned more dissolved oxygen, which is, I'm not sure if it's relating to that snow you mentioned, but because I know how, I guess how the water cycle maybe, but how it works is like the water evaporates, creates precipitation, and then it goes back into the ocean or whatever. So there's like this cycle. So oxygen gets put into the ocean, and then it goes through, I guess, like the bottom. Um, so I'm not sure how oxygen works down there, but it's an interesting concept of like there are larger things down there.
Like wasn't like when the Earth was first created, you have like the air on the surface was like different or something like that, and like back in like dinosaur times, bugs were just huge,
Mm.
like King Kong and that freaking nightmare chasm that they were in with the giant bugs because the air was like better. I don't.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think I heard that somewhere that the oxygen levels were higher, and that's why like dinosaurs were large back then.
So
So if
we're breathing diluted air now. That's why I'm only 5'8".
that's why I'm short. I mean, maybe if you look at fun fact about how like atmosphere works. If we didn't have an atmosphere, we would actually be frozen. So because of the greenhouse effect, the atmosphere keeps it warm, so we could live. And then there's a runaway greenhouse for Venus, like the planet Venus. So I wonder if they have any oceans because I feel like prehistoric Venus is similar to Earth. So I wonder. So I'm thinking of like planets now. Mercury definitely doesn't have anything because it's all burned up.
Yeah, it just looks hot over there.
There are supposedly ice caps on Mars,
Ice caps.
interestingly enough. However, because they don't have an atmosphere, oh, I forgot the word. It's a super cool word, I think. But so there's different form phases of matter, right? So there's liquid, gas, and solid. So there's solid ice on Mars. However, when it melts, it doesn't go to like liquid. It goes straight to gas.
Okay, so it's like liquid nitrogen. Like it's evaporating so quickly?
Yeah, kind of. Just because I
Or
think
like
the
dry ice?
pressure or the atmosphere just can't keep it in a liquid form, so then it just goes straight to gas. It might. I might make this up. I don't know if it's like gasification or something.
That sounds like a really smart word. Like if you said that word, like say that word with a lot more like prowess and confidence, like that, you're like, oh man, like if I didn't know a damn thing about what you were talking about, and you hit me with that word, I'll be like, oh man, he's definitely smarter than me. Um, Jupiter's got two skies, so I love it. And two skies, acid rain, and I love it when we start panicking when they say it's gonna rain here for like a passing storm. And I'm like, listen, do you know what goes on Jupiter? The first sky rains acid and it evaporates by the time it gets to the second sky, and then the land atmosphere is like I don't know what's going on there, but there's the acid rain doesn't get to the land because if it did, it would like burn up Jupiter. I don't know. Jupiter's got two skies, man.
I think one of them like rains shards of glass or something. But that made me think. Going back to oceans, I forgot what it's called. But if you've ever seen, they're underwater. But while they're underwater, it looks like they're at the beach. So it looks like there's water underwater.
I know what you're talking about. It's I have no idea what it's called, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
It's
I
that
forgot
SpongeBob
what it's.
episode.
What's it? Goo Lagoon.
Goo Lagoon.
But the reason why that is, I learned, is it's different densities in the water. So like this other water is, I I guess more, yeah, I guess more dense. Because so if you'll think of, let's say, olive oil and vinegar, they don't mix.
Yeah.
So think of a think of an ocean of olive oil and vinegar. So I forgot. I don't know which is on top and bottom. But if you're in the olive oil ocean, this is a great example, right? If you're in it, you look down, you have another ocean of vinegar, and
No,
that's what happens.
this is
And that's simply why it exists.
gracious stuff. Can we can we can we touch upon the fear of the ocean, which I have been cursed with? It's called thalassophobia, and I also am debating of putting this on my resume as well. Thalassophobia is you're terrified of the ocean, but like me, I find the ocean incredibly fascinating at the same time. But I'm terrified of it at the same time. So it's just opposing forces when it comes to me just being fascinated by the ocean and just the fear of it. It's so vast and it's so like you if you look up thalassophobia like videos online, you'll see like just pictures taken of like sunken ships or just giant things underneath the water. And it's just so, at least for me anyway, it's so unsettling. Just the pictures of it's just something big underwater, and like the unknown beyond the vastness of it, and you're so limited in your movements that you're basically it's like being in a dream where you can't run. It's you're in an what I think it is. It's the fear of the unknown, which if if you're diversed in Lovecraftian's work, that's the whole thing. It's the fear of the unknown, and I think that highlights it very well. It's just your imagination taking over of just you don't know what's beyond that because you've seen the pictures that we with a batfish and Cthulhu emerging at the deep end. Like anything could be. You got like bioluminescent, LED pulsating, translucent jellyfish or fish or creatures, alien level stuff just coming out of this. Like anything could be down there, even stuff beyond your imagination. And it's crazy. I don't know if you ever had any level of like fear of the ocean, but I have a crippling anxiety because of it.
I think it sucks for multiple reasons. Well, first, a quick example. Like, I could get terrified of just closing my eyes in a swimming pool, just because my brain takes over. That's why I need goggles to swim. But it sucks for multiple reasons. Because, like you said, one, it's fear of the unknown. Two, it's real. The ocean is real. You don't know what's down there, and it could exist. And three, it's a different environment. You're in water, and you can't function the same out of water. So if, like, you're approached by a frilled shark, you can't be like, oh crap, I'm gonna run away. No, you gotta swim away.
Which is very hard to do. I don't I don't know if you ever swam lately, but we're not that fast. We're not all 7'12" Michael Phelps that just knows how to maneuver through water and look like a majestic dolphin while doing so. Like it just doesn't work that way.
Quick thing, how fast do you think, like the top speed, Michael Phelps could swim?
I'm not diversified in Michael's work. Um, I want to. I feel like swimming 7 miles an hour. That sounds fast. You know what I mean? Like
You're,
I
yeah,
have no idea speeds at all. But 7 miles per hour in the water, that sounds like you're outrunning a shark at this point.
that's actually accurate. When I first thought of that question, I'm like, I don't know, 15 miles an hour, like school zone speed, you know? It's actually not fast at all. Like, you can literally walk faster than he swims. So I bring this up.
Michael.
Yeah. So I bring this up because even at peak human of Michael Phelps, you you can't swim away from a shark. It's gonna win.
Even Michael's gonna get eaten.
Even yeah.
All
Even
7'12" of Michael's gonna get eaten.
yo, the grippers on that dude is like ginormous.
He could
But
palm a basketball or something.
it's wild.
He's got webbed hands.
Pop
he's,
question.
he's like Shark Boy from Shark Boy Lava.
I don't know why I remember that movie. Pop question. How heavy do you think a blue whale is? Which is the largest animal ever, maybe not ever. Largest living animal. How heavy do you think it is?
I remember someone saying, and this was a reliable source when I was 4 years old in elementary school. They said it was the size of like 4 school buses and it was like 50 tons or something like that. I could be completely wrong, but I know I'm not completely wrong, you know? Like it's probably pretty freaking heavy because that thing looks like it has nothing but weight. Like that thing is not hollow in the slightest.
So you're actually pretty close. Because all right, I'm sometimes at night I just like have questions. And I like ask Alexa like how heavy is a whale? So I'm thinking like obviously it's pretty heavy. I'm like it's probably I don't know a dozen tons, you know, because a ton is 2,000 pounds.
Yeah.
So I looked it up, and apparently a whale could be 200 to 300,000 pounds. Which, what you said, 50 tons? That's 100,000 pounds. So it's actually like 100 tons. It sounds ridiculous. Oh, it's probably like 100 tons. No, that's actually true.
But they look so majestic underneath the water. How is that?
That's,
The
yeah.
buoyancy. It's the Virgin Olive Oil ocean, man. All about the buoyancy.
I wonder how they even measure something like that. I'm assuming it's because they can't lift a whale.
Oh my God! Do you
So I
see?
guess it's an estimate.
This is messed up and a bit of a tangent, but do you know how they get rid of shriveled up whales that wash up on shore?
Oh, I think I do.
Blow them up with dynamite, and it's like at the same time awesome, but one of the most disgusting things you've ever seen because like they blow them up and it's like raining blood, and I'm like, Jesus, man. But because you can't lift them, like you said, they're 100,000 tons. Like what do we do with this? We can't just be Will Smith from freaking Hancock and just lift this thing by its tail and throw it freaking 200 yards. Like, oh, just get this thing out of here, man.
That's messed up. Like, that's definitely because they've obviously tried to first. They're like, all right, let's try to like drag it with one of those beach doom buggies or something. They're like, it's not moving.
You ever try to drag something in the sand? You ain't going
Yeah.
nowhere. They're like, well, maybe we can roll them. We can start to roll them, and it'll get the idea that we're trying to roll it. But he's probably dead at this point. So I don't know where I was going with this, but
That's I mean it's ocean related with the whales. That's messed up. And they just landed on we're just gonna have to blow them up. I don't know.
how else do you get rid of something? You obviously delete it from existence, And how do you delete something? How do you move a mountain? Blow it up. Just 101 construction, like demolition stuff. There's a mountain in my way. I know. The delete button. Yeah,
Next
the
topic.
scary.
Yeah. Next idea is just straight up coral. Coral's incredible.
How
The
it's
large
to just harness life in it. I always found that fascinating.
because quick backstory, our father has an aquarium in his basement, so he
Like you
has
did.
different corals, like you do. And it's crazy. So like different there's so many different. There's like hard coral, there's soft coral. But if you think of like a simple like finger coral,
Mm.
so it's like a finger and it has a bunch of polyps around it. It's not one creature. Each polyp is a different creature. And it's super fast. And they have like slime that who knows could cure stuff. But we wouldn't know because we don't fund this stuff.
All of our funding goes to space, and there's nothing in space.
Quick, because NASA barely gets funding. I saw one picture. It's like take a dollar bill and picture it like that's our U.S. government budget of like everything we spend money on. And so like let's say we're gonna cut it up into different sections of like the funding of stuff. So if you think of the dollar bill, the funding for NASA, the sliver doesn't even get into like the green part.
It's
So
the outline of Ed, Ed and Eddie. Each character just has an outline. That's
yeah.
immediately what I thought of. Just that moving outline of the character, that of the dollar bill. Not even the dollar bill, just the outline.
Yeah, it's basically like the black marker outline. That's so like basically nothing goes to NASA. So if nothing goes to NASA, then nothing at all goes to oceans.
Well, does Elon Musk work with NASA, or is he so rich that he just launches his own rockets whenever he wants, like in his backyard or something?
Yeah, SpaceX. He's just straight up funded his own space exploration.
And NASA lets him like borrow like a launching pad.
I mean,
All right, guys, I got my own rocket. I just need to borrow your launch pad real quick. It won't be long. Ready, 3. One. Oh, look, there goes another one of Elon's rockets, just going up there just for giggles.
But that's the government. They're not gonna fund something like that. So that's why like it has to be some crazy person diving down. Which another crazy idea, not even submarines, nuclear submarines.
Nuclear submarine. Everything's always got a nuclear upgrade to it. It's like the base model to a Hellcat. Like there's always just the upgraded, better V8 version.
Well, real quick, because I was searching ocean stuff. Apparently, the U.S. lost a hydrogen bomb in the ocean, but it was found. I'm like, hold up. I'm sorry. How do you lose a hydrogen bomb?
A hydrogen bomb sounds like one of those things that I would put like a tracking device on. Like it's pretty hard to like lose because it's like the size of a house, but the ocean's pretty big. So like you may you may drop it or something. You may just be like, whoops, a daisy, and there it goes. And now it's like if you think of a house, oh, that's pretty big. But when you think of the ocean and a house in the ocean, well, that's not big at all like anymore, don't you think? They needed a. You couldn't afford a tracking. You could get a tracking device on like Amazon right now for like $13 or something like that. We lost a hydrogen bomb.
So it's a fun, quick story.
I don't know, sir. It just slipped through my fingers. I don't know.
It's like, oh, drop my phone in the water. Oh, drop my hydrogen bomb in the water. But don't worry, it was found. That's all I saw. But anyway, for nuclear submarines, I'm not sure if there's an actual nuclear reactor, which might be true, on the submarine, creating fission or fusion, one of the two. So it just never surfaces. That's crazy.
Okay. Does it have like its own like calculated buoyancy to the point where it like I'm trying to sound a lot more smart than I am right now, but like they like program the buoyancy so it's like perfect enough that it stays at a specific point underneath the water or something.
I don't know if it just stays there or it's like a shark. It might have to keep going straight, but like the depth is probably regulated by something. So it probably stays at, I don't know, 100 feet down, but has to keep going.
So we're in this submarine. How are we able to stay inside this thing if it has that much pressure? Or is this nuclear submarine walls so thick? Or would that even matter? Because the only thing going against us is physics when it comes to pressure. Like there's just things that we just simply cannot do because your brain will just explode like inside your head, and that's nothing short of unfortunate. So like with the submarines, how does that work? Or are they allowed to stay down there for only a certain amount of time?
I think aluminum. No. It's
That foil that you put your chicken nuggets on before you put it in the toaster.
Just fold that up a couple times and you should be good. No, it's submarine. Well, there's different types of submarines. There's the normal submarines, which, it's probably pretty thick, maybe like a foot or something. I mean, I don't know why I just thought of like bulletproof glass, like real bulletproof glass. That's like 6 inches thick.
Yeah.
Or like, like a shield, like in a door. So a normal submarine might be like, I don't know, like that thick or a foot. But then you got deep sea exploration, which is even probably thicker
Is it
because
one
it can't be crushed.
that can only like house one person, and for some reason it has an unlimited supply of oxygen, and it's just this little adorable looking Hot Wheels, only one person capable thing that just has headlights, and it just goes, and it just makes this like bubbling sound, like as it's going down. Like what is that thing, or does that even exist?
I just thought of Yellow Submarine by the Beatles.
Oh,
I feel like that thing was a deep sea exploration one.
if they could have a submarine and just have a civilization inside a giant submarine underneath the ocean, and we're all just singing songs, or something like basically like a Titanic level ship, submarine version, and it just cascades through the ocean, just whatever, and we're all having like tea parties and stuff like that, which reminds me of BioShock with
I
Rapture.
want to, yeah.
Oh my god! First off, 10 out of 10 game. But I love this idea because it is so unique, and it's. I really wish it was real because that would be so cool.
Yeah, I definitely wanted to bring that up. So, if for people who aren't aware of BioShock, it's a video game that takes place. It's like a city that's underwater. And when we first saw that, I'm like, that's freaking awesome. That's incredible. It was like supposedly built in like the 60s or something. And I mean, to do that, there's a lot of assumptions there. Because one, where do you even start with that?
Right?
Because first, you need machines to even get down there. Two, you need to build down there. But getting past that, because they have like glass tunnels, and if you think of that, like that'd be so sick. Like you walking to the store and it's just a glass tunnel under the ocean. But how do you even get like air?
Something.
Do you like plant? Do you have like plants and just survive off of that?
Or do you think it was a sunken city, like that whole metropolis was built at a point, and so many years have passed since then that, like, if you see like a time lapse of where like a giant lake is, and you like reverse it all the way to the beginning, water was never there in the first place, and then it just eventually just kind of caved in a little bit, and then it just water filled, and next thing you know, a lake is there. So maybe that metropolis was there, and then the ocean happened.
That's a good point. That'll probably take a super long time.
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah.
Obviously, time lapses of that would be millions of years. But that you could prepare for something like that and survive the flooding. I mean, there is what's going on now. I think ocean levels are slowly increasing. So like
Ice caps are melting, and the polar bears are balancing on an ice cube right now.
global warming. So that's that's like political stuff. Like I can't even tell you if that's true or not because there's so many political heads in there. Like I heard a lot of people talk about it, but like if you look at the science, it says something different. But because you have to look at super long-term trends. We're creatures of like 5-second intervals. If you look at 1,000-year spans over the life of the Earth, there were cold seasons, or eras, and warm eras that lasted hundreds of years. We've been around for like a little bit. So for us to say that like, oh, we probably are affecting a little bit because we have a lot of fossil fuels and all that stuff. But what's interesting to kind of touch on that of with global warming and there's more CO2 and we look at that as bad. If you're a tree, that's actually good but they don't look at it from that perspective. So from like vegetation, it's actually a good thing for more CO2 for the Earth. So I don't know, interesting thing.
Okay.
Is there a question before that? Sorry.
All has been lost and forgotten.
Oh, but yeah, evolution and like Bioshock, city underwater would be sick. That would be an interesting experiment. There was a dude. I had his name written down. His name was Garrett Reisman or something like that. He lived 2 weeks on the bottom of the sea. He explained it was 60 feet down, so not like deep sea ocean. But in 6 feet's pretty deep.
That's deep.
For yeah, that's like 3 houses deep. So he was on Joe Rogan, but he was just like explaining how he lived down there. It was pretty interesting.
So it's
But
did he survive on sucking on air bubbles or something?
well, all right. He lived in like he wasn't underwater the whole time. He was like in a bubble, like a living area that you could like, how to explain it? It had like air in it. So you go underneath and then you come up and then there's like a living area.
Oh, okay.
So like I don't know, when he was like sleeping, he looks over at a window and you could see the ocean or something. Which I don't know would be cool or terrifying.
I would be terrified the entire time. I don't even think I could do that. Like I would be trembling so much, just just continuous poop would just be exiting at all times. Like I think I would just probably just dehydrate myself of just how much poop there would be, of how much fear would be just coursing through my body.
Going back to your idea of like rising and non-rising sea levels, an interesting thing I just learned actually is called glacial compression. So we're talking about glaciers, like frozen blocks of ice. So obviously, glaciers are heavy. So what happens is when glaciers melt, it makes the land rise because there's less weight on them. I never heard that before. Right? So think of a glacier, it's heavy, so it's pushing down the land.
Right.
When it melts, there's less of it. So it's the land
right
is right. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I never heard of that before. That's super interesting. So while glaciers melt, possibly during global warming or something, um, apparently like different land masses might rise up or something.
Interesting. So do you think some kind of landmass will just surface one of these days?
There could be lost civilizations. There could be like, I don't know, like tombs or structures, but it could easily be underwater and we simply wouldn't know.
You ever see one of those photos that there's like this like statue? It's like a collection of statue memorials at like not like a deep sea level, but it's like the a bottom of like a sand where it's the bottom is like sandy enough to it's like deep enough, whatever. And there's like a circular pattern of humanoid statues all holding hands at the bottom of the ocean. And that's like a whatever that is. And it's that always just blew my mind just seeing that like over and over and over again, just like people just bring that up every so often that they just have these statues or just not even that one in particular, just other ones. It's like, where was this? Like, did they make it? Was it aliens? Like all these things. There's so many. We're talking like millions of years when it comes to like a time lapse of like how that got there, how it was constructed. Like, did it have something to do with another species? But then they're humanoid figures, but there's so much like coral and like all this stuff. Like it's uh, like I don't think the term is corroded, but it's like so like grown on whatever. Like it's been there for a long, 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 long time, and it like that's really interesting. It's like, was the ocean not there before? I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's a past civilization that they had these structures, and then just over time, water levels rose and just submerged it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it's like thousands. Humans have been around longer than I think, and it's very interesting. Like civilizations have been around like easily like 5 to 10,000 years, and a lot could happen in that amount of time.
People think we've been here 2023 years. Like there are still some people out there. They're like, oh yeah, we only been here for a short while. Like civilizations go back like thousands of years, and I don't know. It gets like religious, whatever, and this, that, and the other thing. But we go back like BC, the freaking thousands of years there, and all that stuff. Do you think maybe the rising of the oceans had something to do with like any kind of biblical stuff?
You know, it's interesting you say it because I we could touch on it in another video with doing a lot of research into Egypt. And not only that, but so many different civilizations talk of a giant flood, including Christianity with Noah, right?
What is boat? Yeah.
Noah, yeah. I get sometimes I got to make sure it's Noah or Moses. So there's a giant flood. Other civilizations, they also depict a giant flood. And some people might believe Noah or certain different myths. However, there it's interesting how they all talk about the same exact thing. So there was some thoughts of like how there was a giant flood while humans were around, and that story kind of just because it was so vast and different civilizations have different stories about it.
1 second. Oh, hold up. Wait a minute. Wait a second. I think that's. Wait. My brain is working. What if? Because in biblical terms, when God went to Noah and was like, "Yo, I kind of messed up with civilization. Humans were kind of a mistake, but Noah, you're pretty cool. I'll give you all this lumber from Home Depot that's not created yet, and you just make a boat single-handedly, okay?" And then he makes this boat, and just warn just the animals, I guess. I don't know, of just like this flood that's coming, and I think that's something else. So like it rained for 40 days and 40 nights, or like, what if the world was just a flash flood due to God's rain? What if that civilization was the original us? Like you have all these statues and all this stuff underneath the water. What if that came from our like before biblical term, biblical whatever? It was all written by man, Bible and stuff. But what if that was like us, like the original us? Am I onto something?
That is super interesting. So first, like you mentioned, the 40 days, 40 nights. I thought, because I'm like iffy with that stuff and like different myths. I'm like, all right, it's an interesting story. I'm like, all right, maybe it was a slight over exaggeration and it rained for like 4 days. But because all these different civilizations are talking about like maybe there was a flood. And as I went into different documentaries and videos and stuff like that, there are talks of there was a giant flash flood that went through Africa, and it completely I don't want to say disformed, but you know, it you could kind of see in the landmass because when you see water go through stuff, you know that water was there at some point, or like different valleys because water cuts through rock and stuff, and it just shows how it went through Africa in like a certain way. And it's interesting that you brought up like there could have been a civilization before that. Quick side note of how Egypt and the pyramids, there was actually water in front of them at one point, which I kind of didn't know. It was covered in limes. They used to be white limestone, and like I guess the Nile went up to the pyramids. I'm like, huh. And so that was a different lifetime ago. But if you think about if there was a giant flash flood, it would wipe out everything. Your civilization wouldn't even be known. All your technology and your advanced, now I'm not saying they were walking around with iPhones and we just caught up to them, but you know, they had this technology and everything wiped out and kind of had to possibly rebuild again. And you possibly couldn't have known. And it's not like anything was fossilized because the water just ran through it. And like you can't find any remnants, really.
So it's like if we were to, okay, so say if like a giant flood flooded through Mount Fiji in Japan. You got this giant ass mountain. Okay, so you got this giant flood and it only like submerges the mountain to like a certain level because it's so big, and it only like comes halfway, but you still have that peak. Do you think that like the United States, South America, Africa, and like Europe and stuff like that, do you think that those land masses were just tall mountains and the rest were just low level stuff that it was submerged? So like pretty much all the land that we know as today would be giant mountains that just stood above the flash flood
Mm.
that caused our oceans or something like that.
I think that's a good point. I don't know if it was ever that low for you to be like looking up at America at on like a plateau.
There's
I
an
mean,
incline.
but I mean, technically, if you get rid of the water,
Just
all
like
of the yeah, it's just like all the countries are higher, and the ocean is just lower, going down to the what is it, Marianas Trench,
yeah.
which is it's crazy and not crazy at the same time. That trench is like a mile down, which is nuts.
Yeah.
But if you think of the Earth, the equator is like I don't know 1,000. I gotta look it up. But that mile down in the trench is so insignificant to the size of the Earth.
Oh yeah. Like I think you got to go 8 miles down. Like you could put I remember forgot the number, but you could put like a number of stacked Empire State Buildings
Yeah.
at the bottom of the ocean to the surface, and it's like 8 miles down, and that's like really deep. I always thought of like from our original house, and you have that mile stretch to like town, basically.
Yeah.
And if you were to take that distance, a mile long, and just stand it up like vertically, and just times that by 8, like that would be beyond the clouds, beyond like into space. Like that is really high up, and just to plunge that, just to imagine how deep the ocean is, that's beyond just comprehension. Like that's crazy, and
Yeah.
it just feels like it keeps going. Like there is no bottom.
But there is. That's the weirdest part. I was listening to a interview with Neil deGrasse Tyson, and he was so if you think of a globe, and you know how some globes the Earth is like raised, or like mountains, it's like raised a little bit. If you think of it realistically, that would be a drastic over exaggeration of a mountain. Right? If that makes sense. So if you make it realistic to the Earth's size, taking the Mount Everest, which is the highest point, and the Marianas Trench, which is the lowest point. And if you take the same globe and you run your nail over that distance, you wouldn't even feel it.
Mm.
That's how insignificant that distance is, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So compared to the Earth, that depth or that height is like nothing.
Do you? I thought of this a couple of days ago. Do you think there is a reason why they're avoiding deep sea expedition? Do you think they're like they know what's down there and they're avoiding it?
That's a good question. Yeah, this could be our last point. Is like
We got to bring
aliens
the Illuminati
down there.
somehow.
Are aliens down there, dude?
They're always involved, either aliens or Illuminati. It always falls back to them. I think there's a reason. I'm biased. I think Cthulhu's down there. You can't convince me otherwise. I think something's down there that can end the earth. And they're just like, what? No, don't worry about it. I think something's down
that's maybe they're not funded for a reason.
there.
That's a good point. If you've seen some UFO videos, the new term is UMP, I think.
A bomb.
No, maybe not that. It's something else. But they had to rename it because UFO is too like crazy. But there's like so many videos out there that it's almost known like they're just things out there. We don't know what they are. And like now, there were videos of like Tic Tacs and like Air Force people seeing it. And now like the government is acknowledging these things. So possibly something might be out there. However, there was one video of one UFO hovering above the water. Supposedly, I wasn't there. Hovering above the water. And some were thinking that it was communicating with something else under the water.
They're trying to wake up Cthulhu.
So like the flying thing could have been communicating to the swimming thing, and then it goes back down. There was another video. This is very interesting. I'm not sure if it was a video or a story. But I think there were either divers or a submarine. They were coming up and trying to get like back on their boat or something. And on sonar, there was some giant thing on their radar below them coming up very fast. They're like, what the heck is this? And then it just submerged back down. They're like, what was that?
Huh.
And there's so many weird stories like that. Mysterious. There was one, if you've ever heard of the bloop.
Yes.
I don't want to burst your bubble, but I heard the cause of that.
What that be?
So what the bloop was?
Didn't like a glacier farted or something?
Yeah.
Like it
So,
just released an air bubble.
Yeah, basically. So the bloop, there was a giant sound in the ocean that like so many detectors picked up, and they're like, "What was this? Cthulhu's waking up." And apparently, like a glacier like fell, or like an air bubble from a glacier just. When I heard that, I'm like, damn.
So lame.
But yeah, I don't know, man. Do you think alien or some type of even like a cure or something?
Well, I do think that the like how the government handles everything else in this world, the money's in the treatment, not the cure. So
Yeah.
they definitely have the cure to cancer somewhere. They're not making it public. Aliens do in fact exist. They're not releasing that information to the world, although there are numerous files and numerous just evidence and all this stuff that aliens do exist. Uh, Cthulhu's down there indefinitely, but um, there's definitely there's got to be a reason. I'm not saying like I'm not saying like ancient aliens, that guy with the crazy hair. Aliens, just
They're alien.
everything just revolves back to aliens. But I think like that story of aliens hovering over the water and just like communicating like with something. Like, is there like an alien civilization down there in like a Bioshock Rapture esque like underwater thing or something?
Hmm.
There's got to like there's got to be aliens down there, and they're trying to like to create something. I don't know what, but just something. And all these LED bioluminescent translucent creatures are just failed experiments that they just, oh man, I messed up this one, and they just let it out into the ocean, and it's just
Yo,
floating around whatever, and they're trying to create like some perfect creature, and they just haven't nailed it down. They're trying to get a trademark on it, but they just haven't like pinpoint exactly like how to create the perfect being. That's what I think is down there. Aliens trying to create the perfect being.
that made me think of 3 points. I'll try to go through quickly. One is that they tested a freaking nuclear bomb under the water. I don't know who approved this, but if you've ever seen, you should definitely look it up.
It's
You showed it to me.
it's
All right,
crazy.
so it starts like exploding. I don't know why they were like trying to like learn more about how hydrogen bombs work. So it explodes. And I'm like, wow, that's pretty big. But then it keeps going. I'm like, holy crap. And then it just gets so large. And I just thought of that. That's terrifying. Like, isn't there radiation?
Oh yeah.
So what? Radiation is just all in the ocean now?
Oh yeah, but the ocean is so big, it just
Dissipates?
it just dissipates like that. Like, you know, that giant oil leak that happened a few years ago? Like millions, if not billions, of gallons of oil just leaked into the ocean, and the ocean was just like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like it just bleeded onto the shores for like a few weekends, and then it was like it never happened. That's how big the ocean is.
The ocean is pretty big. There's so many topics. I don't want to go too long. One is I remember I took a couple astronomy.
Not astrology.
Yeah,
Astronomy.
astrology is not real. That hurt some people's feelings. Astronomy, the space. I took a couple courses like that, and they showed a picture of a planet. It's just a blue planet. They're like, "What planet is this?" I'm like, "That looks like Neptune." They're like, "Nope, it's the Earth. It's turned like the back way that no one looks at. That's how big the ocean is." I'm like, "What?"
There's just a portion of the earth that's just water.
Yeah, like the base. What ocean? The Pacific Ocean covers the planet if you look at it a certain way.
Covers
So,
the whole east side.
so I'm like, wow. Um, then going back to things you were talking about with Rapture and Bioshock, maybe. So, all right. So if you think of a cataclysmic event of, I don't know, an asteroid or a nuke or something explodes, it doesn't go underwater. Like if something happens, like so the asteroid with the dinosaurs, the fish were fine.
They were just chilling. Whoa, there's some shit going on up there.
So maybe the government or
Or
random
a
people.
bunch of underwater breathing lizard people.
But there could be like a backup plan. They're like, stuff can't go underwater, so maybe they have like a little shelter underwater to, for that. And going back to more alien stuff, not to get too crazy, but there's that concept of if there could be these flying objects going through different mediums, meaning a spaceship, it doesn't have to be a space, it could be anything. It could go through the air and then go right into the water without disturbance, because it could be possibly altering matter or doing something with gravity. So it doesn't necessarily matter of the medium. So whether it's air or water, it could just go straight into there, which is what the aliens use.
That's the alien technology.
But I mean, if that exists, then it doesn't matter where you go. The bottom of the ocean could be your headquarters.
I always thought sometimes if you were to keep going 8 miles into the ocean, like you would be going down, and at some point, at some unexplainable point, you will not be going down anymore. You will be going up and just emerge, and there would just be like a bunch of Asian people around you. Like, I don't know.
Just
Like
in
there's
Japan.
no bottom. It just inverts. There's no bottom.
Well, that's interesting too, because there's like ocean, then there's crust of like the earth, then there's mantle, which is filled with magma, and then the core, which is, I don't know, nickel or something.
Like that.
I wonder if we could ever get. We probably won't get to the core. That'd be pretty wild, because there's some nuclear stuff over there. Like that's how the Earth is surviving. It's just nuclear stuff, like fission, fusion, similar to the sun.
Fission, fusion.
Which is the deep sea vents. It bubbles up through, I guess, like moving magma.
I see. There was this design that I always thought of, and this will probably be a natural point. Okay, if you were to take a straw, just like a liquid transporting device straw,
Got it.
and just cap off the bottom, and the walls of the straw are like a bulletproof glass, like real, like thick.
Got it.
If you were to put this capped straw, basically a cylinder at this point, and just put it in the ocean, and this straw just happens to be 8 miles long. And if you just lower yourself down into this thick, long ass straw, would you be able to eliminate pressure and just go all the way down to the bottom? Opinions, concerns, questions, and sometimes why?
One, it would have to be really, it has to be super thick, because obviously the water would crush it on the sides. Another thing I would think of is, I wonder if it might sound stupid, but hear me out. I wonder if air would be heavy at the bottom. So All right, so hear me out. If you're at the bottom of the ocean, there's pressure not only from the sides but above you. There's all that water pushing down on you.
Right.
So let's remove the water. Let's say there's air. Obviously, air's not heavy. But if you think of an airplane, there's less pressure and that messes up your head. I wonder if at the bottom of the ocean would be similar with air.
Like, because if you were to take, like, if you're in New York and if you take a trip down to Florida, I like when we ever like took a vacation down there, I would always have a headache or something like that.
Yeah.
It's just lower on the earth or what have you. So when it comes to like the air being different, like yeah, you just feel like something's different here. Like you don't know what it is, but something's different. Like, but the top of the straw would still be protruding out the surface of the ocean. So like you would have an air source. It would be probably like
Uh-huh.
a mile span of like how big this straw is. But if it just like kept going, like that would be, I don't know. I just eliminating the like how to create this, like just crowdfunding, like all this stuff, like just eliminate physics completely, and just would this be not really possible, but if it were possible, would it be possible?
I mean, eliminating the different pressures and stuff and how to create it and materials. I mean, yeah, I guess that's a way to I feel like that would be easier than like going on a deep sea submarine. You just go down this hole and look around.
I don't think we're not putting enough time, thought, energy, or money into deep sea expedition. And that's our lesson here. Get Elon on the phone, stop looking up into nothingness, and start looking down into stuff that's actually there. Oh my god, look at the stars. There's so much of nothing. Space is boring. It's just nothingness, and there's not much we could do. There's not much to like. Of course there's like a lot to learn and stuff, but like how it can help us, I think like learning about something that's great and all, but how you could learn about something that could actually do something that could be real, like space, it just feels like fantasy stuff. It just feels so beyond our reach because literally it is. But the ocean, it's there, it's tangible, it's real, and we're not putting enough money into exploration of the ocean.
That's very true. I think that's a good spot to end.
Yes.
I feel like I could keep going on, and not only with like both real and fake stuff. Not fake, but like mysterious stuff that your brain could come up with, because you don't know, so it could keep going.
Just endless possibilities, and that's what we discuss here on Into the Void, because the void is just endless possibilities of, it could be endless nothingness or endless possibilities. That's what we try to tackle here on this here channel. Thank you for joining us on Into the Void. I am Nick, that's Dan. Hold up, strike that, reverse it. You have been watching Into the Void, and this has been well Into the Void. Say bye now. Bye.
Bye.